Welcome to episode 62.
Hey, this is John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and you're listening to Who Did That Voice, where we take an in-depth look at voiceovers.
Finally, warmer weather is here, and there is no better time than right now to book your vacation getaway with 3D Travel Company. Head on over to our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co and click the Book Now button on the left-hand side. They give a complimentary quote so you can get an idea of what it will cost to take your summer vacation. For a limited time, Who Did That Voice listeners can receive a Disney gift card for qualifying Disney and Universal trips, booked and traveled by the end of 2017. Hurry and book today so you can travel away.
Welcome to Who Did That Voice, the show where we take an in-depth look at voiceover. And now, here's your host, Trenton Larkin.
Hey you guys, this is a special shout out to all my listeners around the world. Who Did That Voice is now heard in over 78 different countries, and I can't thank you guys enough. Here in the USA and abroad, thank you for listening to Who Did That Voice. Keep listening and sharing with your friends. Hey all you Marvel and Spider-Man fans out there, Who Did That Voice is doing an entire month with cast and crew from the 1994 Spider-Man the Animated Series, which aired on Fox Kids. You won't want to miss the month of June on Who Did That Voice. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today's special guest voiced Mary Jane Watson, aka MJ, and the love of Peter Parker's life on the 1994 Spider-Man the Animated Series.
Mary Jane, all this has made me realize just how precious you are to me.
I'm flattered, Spider-Man, but I'm already in love with a great guy, Peter Parker.
Mary Jane, there's something I've got to show you. You see, Mary Jane? It's me.
Peter? But this is impossible.
Here, let me prove it.
Wait, Peter! There's so much I have to ask you.
Fasten your seatbelt. Don't worry, Mary Jane. I'd never let anything happen to you. Believe me. So, what do you think?
How could you have kept this from me so long? Makes me wonder what other little secrets you're hiding.
How'd you like to take a lifetime to find out?
What? What are you saying?
I lost you once because I didn't act quickly enough. I'm not gonna make that mistake again. Mary Jane, will you marry me?
Of course I'll marry you.
This is the happiest day of my life. If only I had a ring. Wait a minute. Now, it's official.
Family heirloom?
Well, I wouldn't want it appraised by Tiffany's.
Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Who Did That Voice. Today on the show we have Sara Ballantine joining us. Sara, thank you so very much for coming on the show today.
Oh, thank you for having me. Of course, it's always delightful to talk to you and to talk about Spider-Man.
Absolutely. And as Sara has mentioned, she was on the 1994 Spider-Man cast as what particular character, Sara?
Well, I was Mary Jane, and then towards the end of the show, I was Mary Jane Watson.
And as some of you may not know, Mary Jane did go missing on the show and then came back as a aquatic cloned character. So we never actually got to see her in quote unquote real form again, but she did come back on the show. And the reason we're talking this whole month long, Sara, about Spider-Man is just because it's one of those shows that I grew up loving, and I've been fortunate enough to meet several of your other cast members who were fortunate enough to talk with me and give me some time. So thank you so much for joining me this whole month of June in 2017 as we talk about Spider-Man.
Oh, it's always fun to talk about it. It was such a great show. It was such a great experience for me. And, truthfully, it was only the second cartoon I had ever done. So I hadn't had a lot of experience, but because I'm an actress, and they wanted actors who could act these parts. They didn't focus so much on casting voiceover people. They wanted actors who had interesting voices. And after I think I heard Jennifer Tilly had really, really wanted to be Mary Jane, and when I found out that I got it over her, I was like, oh my God. But her voice maybe is too interesting. Maybe that was it. That would
Yeah.
just take over. But it was just the whole experience. Even getting the job was fun, and then of course doing it and being with all those great people and having those great scripts to act, and just the whole thing was just super fun.
And how did that whole audition process come about for you? Did your agent just kind of hand it to you, or was somebody like, "Hey, you should try out for this"? Or
Well, I have, and I'm actually with the same agent that I had then, Vanessa Gilbert, over at, she was at TGMD, and now she's at Solid Talent. I'll give her a new plug. And she said, "You want to audition for this cartoon?" And I, of course, said yes, and I did it. And then I didn't hear anything for like months. And I mean, I think I auditioned in October, and then maybe in February, I had a callback to come in and do it again, another scene or something, another part of the script. And that was February. And then I never heard anything again until like April, when they said, are you available to come in again and meet the director and read with some of the potential Spider-Man actors? Yes, that was it. And I said, oh, of course, it'd be my pleasure. And oh golly, I wish I could remember. It was like a guy from Beverly Hills 90210. I want to say Austin Green. You may know who it was.
I
He was
don't.
on Beverly Hills. Yeah, I don't remember his name, but he
Sorry.
was a big TV star. And Tim Daly, all these great people. There were like five.
Wow.
But when Chris Barnes came in, it was like, that's Peter Parker. That's it. It really, and I was very inexperienced with this, but you could just hear a quality that just made you believe him, and just he was perfect. So after all the guys had left, they asked me who I thought was the best, and that was who I suggested. And I didn't know I had the job because I hadn't been hired. So I just thought, oh, they're so cool. They're talking to me about who I would like to work with, and I'm not even hired yet. And then I said, oh, if you don't mind, I wrote a little piece for Mary Jane. And they were like, what? And I said, yeah, I just wrote a little monologue for her, just for fun. And I read it to them on the mic. And then I never heard it. I mean, that was from October to now, it's April.
Yeah.
It's May. I'm in Oregon on vacation with a girlfriend, and I get a phone call. You booked the job. They want you to be Mary Jane.
Wow.
And I was like, are you kidding me? And they want you to work tomorrow. So it was like, no, it's just so crazy. And when I got to the studio, they said, and what really put you over the top was that piece that you had written.
Wow.
And that just made me feel so good. They sent me it. John Semper actually sent me a cassette of what I had done for the audition. And it was just so lovely. I mean, I don't know if it always happens like that. I'm sure it doesn't. It was just a very nice experience for me.
Absolutely. Well, that is so fantastic to hear, Sara. I always love to get, people's background on how they get into shows and stuff. And, just kind of their background of who they are. We always love to start out kind of getting a background. But how did you actually get into acting before Spider-Man, and what led you down the path of acting and voiceover eventually?
Oh, gosh. Well, this is my whole life, truthfully. I mean, when I was a little girl, I think I was 4, my mother asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, and I said, I want to be a stripper. And she tried to deter me from pursuing that, but what I really meant was I wanted to entertain people. I wanted to entertain, and that's what I always wanted to do. I sang, I danced, I took tap lessons, I took acting lessons, I went to England to study Shakespeare. It was always what interested me the most. And I've sung in bands, I've sung in groups, I've been in musicals, I've been an actress my whole life. And I was doing a production, or not a whole production, a mini production of Guys and Dolls,
Oh,
and
I love it.
a producer. You do know that show? Do you
I
like
played
that
Nicely
show?
Nicely Johnson in high school.
You did? Oh my
Sit down, you're
God! What
rocking
is
the boat.
Oh, it's so great. Well,
I
it's such
love
a
it.
great. Oh, well, maybe we'll do a revival. And then let me
Yeah.
know when you come
Luck
to
be a
LA.
lady.
Really, one of the
Absolutely.
best musicals of
Oh,
all
it
time.
is. Wonderful.
So I got an audition from that show for this commercial, this voiceover, and I went in and I read the line, and the casting director said, "No, no, no, use the voice that you did in Guys and Dolls. Try it that way." And I went, "Really?" And they said, "Yeah, just try it." So now I have to get it up. It was like, "Oh, Sally, stack it doing tuna with good taste. They went tuna that tastes good." And I got that job. And I did that commercial for years, which was, I've had very good luck with the things I've done have been fantastic. So that's how I got into voiceover basically, was that commercial. And then I started doing a lot of commercials, voiceovers. And then when Spider-Man came along, I mean, that was just about the greatest thing that could ever happen, because to have a steady show where your character develops, it's just like what everybody wants in show business in general, on
Yeah.
television. They want to do something regular where they can develop the character and find nuances and keep growing in it, and also to have any steady work in this business is a freaking miracle, let's face it.
Absolutely. Well, and it was amazing because you got to be on 39 different episodes out of that series. And it was animated, Sarah, but to me, it felt more like a sitcom almost. There was a lot of character development. I mean, John Semper was just a genius with the writing. His team that he worked with to get everything together. I know John put in so much sweat and blood in the scripts, and
Oh,
it's
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 brilliant.
so good. It's so good. It's not just a Saturday morning cartoon. It has so much meat on it. It's just, even now as I rewatch the show, I just finished watching it about a week or two ago, and I devoured everything in just a short amount of time. But it was so good, and I was just like, man, as a kid, you enjoy it for the look, the style, the action, but as an adult, I enjoy it for the script writing because the dialogue is just killer.
It's true, and I think that's why they really wanted to cast actors, because the way we worked in on this show, we weren't looking at picture. We would act in the booth, in the room. They'd set it up so we could look at each other and be next to each other, and sometimes there'd be a lot of us in there, and we didn't have to act or picture, so we could act like we were really acting.
Yeah.
And sometimes the director would want different things from us, but that's why I think you got that impression, because it was like a show. It
Yeah.
was.
It
And
was.
gosh, I'd be sitting between Ed Asner and Malcolm McDowell, and there's Martin Landau over there, and I'm thinking, well, I'm the only person in here I've never heard of. you know,
Yeah.
um, you learn so much, and you're just in awe of the quality of the work. I mean, not to sound hoity-toity or anything, but it is work, and it was just an incredible team. And John Semper, I can't say enough good things about him. He likes the Magic Castle too. I see him quite often, which is so wonderful after all this time.
Oh yeah. Well, and tell us real quick, just we're going off topic just a little bit, but tell us about the
Oh,
Magic
sorry.
Castle. No, 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 it's wonderful. Tell us about the Magic Castle and your affiliation with that, because that's something I absolutely have always loved as a kid and didn't realize you had
Oh,
a connection with that. So,
well, my father was a magician. My father, Carl Ballantine, was a magician and an actor. He was known as the Amazing Ballantine, and he was an early member of the club. He was friends with Bill and Irene Larson, who founded the club with Bill's brother Milt in like '62. And when my dad got McHale's Navy and we came out to California, they wanted my dad to join the club, and of course he did. So I grew up going there, and when my dad passed away in 2009, I had been going with him quite a bit for 9 years. Um, when my mother died in 2000, anyway, that's that story. But I was hanging out there a lot, and I just love the place. I just want to do everything I can to keep to keep it going, and it's doing great.
To keep the magic
better
alive.
than ever. Yep, and it is a private club, so I can't just say, oh, come to LA and you can get in. But
Yeah.
it is a fantastic, unique, one-of-a-kind, greatest club in the world. And if you like magic, there's no place better to go.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for diving into that just a little bit. When you mentioned it, I just had to touch base on it because magic has always been in my heart, and it's something I absolutely love. And I just think it's so awesome that you've had a connection with that and that your father was a magician. It's really unique.
Oh, thanks. Well, I got my dad on the show. Actually, he did a couple of Spider-Man episodes.
Really? What characters?
He played a janitor.
Okay.
And possibly a gangster. I think he did 2 episodes,
Awesome.
and that was pretty cute. It's always great when you can give your father a job. My God.
Oh, yeah.
And he, of course, was wonderful. And my dad had done voiceover too, but he hadn't done. He'd done Garfield. He'd been on Garfield.
Oh,
Mark
cool.
Mark Evanier hired him because he liked to use character actors. There's just something great about these characters who have these voices. You can't fake that. That's just in their very bones, and
Yeah.
it does make an authentic sounding character. So that was great. That was a lot of fun, and it was great to work with my dad.
Absolutely. Did he ever get a chance, or did you get a chance to know Lorenzo Music?
Lorenzo was on Garfield, so my dad worked with him. I met Lorenzo. Actually, my girlfriend Laura was a regular on that series, the Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, yeah.
And she got me an audition. I did a couple of those episodes too. So yeah, I did. I didn't know him really well, but of course he was wonderful, and everybody adored him.
That's
He was
fantastic.
Pretty brilliant.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I loved his voice. So unique. And to me, he is my Garfield. You guys are my Spider-Man cast, because until John Semper and you guys created that show, I wasn't a comic book reader as a kid because, I struggled with dyslexia and stuff. So reading for me was a super big challenge as a kid. And so visually, I eat things up like Steven Spielberg does, and I see things in pictures. And so my cast of Spider-Man and the voices I hear in my head, anytime I see anything and I compare anything to anything, it's your show from 1994. So you guys really were the creation of my Marvel world for the very first time.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Well, I'll be honest, I wasn't a comic book reader per se, except Betty and Veronica. I was a girly girl. So once I got into the show, I started devouring. Oh, well, Stan Lee. Let's talk about the brilliance of Stan Lee and creating these characters and just so smart and just his incredible. And by the way, he comes to the Magic Castle. I think he's a member. I'm not positive, but
Oh, really?
he's been there quite a few times. And of course, it's always a thrill when he comes in. Just that out of his creativity came such a great world that I had to explore. I totally, am in awe of him. He came a couple of times. We went and did some Comic-Cons where he was on the panel, and it really was like goosebumps time because he's iconic. He's just iconic.
Oh, yeah. Well, and speaking of the real Ghostbusters, you actually played Ray's girlfriend, who was voiced by Frank Welker. And
was a genius. Oh, my God. There was nothing he couldn't do.
This guy does everything. I can't believe it.
A zipper or a toilet flushing. I mean, he could do anything.
Yeah.
It was a little eerie, actually, but I had a great time. Oh, gosh, you really did your homework.
Yeah, I really do try to make sure I have my homework done so that when I'm doing my show, my guests hopefully gets surprised by some of the stuff that I know. And other than that, I love to just, make my show interesting for the listeners out there, and make it exciting. Because if you don't know what you're talking about, it kind of makes for a boring show.
Well, I was glad that you did, that you knew more than that so I didn't have to come up with all the information. You know what I mean? You're very informed. So that's really wonderful. wonderful.
Well, absolutely.
It's wonderful.
Well, it absolutely is. Just briefly speaking of Frank Welker, like a couple of voices I love from him are Abu from Aladdin, and he played Raja on that. I mean, and those are just a couple. He did like Dr. Claw from the old Inspector Gadget. And I mean, he's just done so much that you look at his career and you're like, who he did what? Like,
Yeah.
he's
Kind
crazy
of
talented.
amazing. I mean,
Crazy talented.
so multi-talented,
Yeah.
and really not too. I mean, there are guys like that around, but not too many of them.
Yeah.
It's really true. And Joel Lasky was another one, just
Yeah.
amazingly skilled
Yeah.
voiceover artist, and on camera too. I mean, there's that too, but just what they can do with their voices and how I feel about my voice. I had no idea I was so versatile with my
Yeah.
voice, way more than just how I look. I can play so many characters. I can play much younger characters. I can play older characters, because now I've, of course, spent years developing this, because this is a commodity.
Yeah.
I didn't think about it growing up. That some kids, they come right out of the box going, I want to do cartoons. Yeah, I want to do voiceover. It hadn't occurred to me.
Yeah.
That just was not even, I didn't know that was a job. I didn't know that was part of show business. I thought those things just happened. I had no, kids are so savvy today. Everybody's so savvy.
Well, a couple other projects that you've worked on, we'll just touch on them briefly, were Guild Wars 2. You also worked on Batman Year One, and another project that was associated back with the Spider-Man project was called Spider-Man Cartoon Maker. I believe it came out on 3.5 or CD-ROM. It was the beginning era of CD-ROM, if it was, and I think it might have been. But it was actually a thing that John Simper and the guys had worked on that allowed people to like create their own comic books and like put pictures of different backgrounds and then put characters on it and kind of make a somewhat animated like comic, I believe, is what it used to be like. So it was just a very unique thing, but they actually used your voice in that project along with Chris and a couple others. But that was such a unique thing to mess around with as a kid on my old school Windows 95, I think it was.
Oh, wow. I have to check it out. I don't think I ever heard it. I don't know if I ever listened to it. I should find it.
Yeah, if you can find a copy, I'm sure it would be worth a sampling of, but it was just a fun little thing they came out with for kids back in that era, but around the 95 time frame. So
you do a job or two, and unless you're really diligent about recording it and this and that, in the olden days, you weren't that on it. Now everybody can see everything forever if you want to, but it didn't occur to me, I better record that or get a copy of it. It just didn't occur. The Spider-Man, I got sent all the episodes I was in as a gift, which was so lovely.
Oh, wow. That is awesome.
I do have that.
Wow.
Yeah, and at Guild Wars, I bought the first one, and, there's so many voices in it, but I definitely sound different than everyone else. They cast it very, very well. They cast all the best voice people are in that, too. Everybody is just fantastic. The caliber of the performers it's all so good.
It is. And it's only gotten better as the years have progressed. And that's something we've continually seen. So
yeah, it's true. And that's wonderful. I mean, it's not just for kids now. It seems that it's crossed over so much, and all these musicals and Disney's animated features and movies that become stage shows after their movies.
It's just interchangeable now, everything.
Yeah.
Well, another fun project you got to be a part of, Sarah, that was something that really blew my mind was the Star-Kissed tuna commercials. And I believe you touched on it a little bit earlier, but we didn't dive into it too much. And Herschel Bernardi, I believe is his name. Is that right?
Yeah, he was the original Charlie Tuna. When I very first did it, and that was the very first voiceover thing I'd ever done, he was Charlie Tuna, but he died somewhere during the time of that commercial popularity, and they cast another actor, and I wish I could remember his name. He also did Fred Flintstone. I think his name was Henry Corden. I'm not positive, but I may have to look that up. But he replaced Herschel, and then I worked with him for a few years, and then I didn't even have to go. Yeah, Henry Corden. That's who it was.
Okay.
Maybe it even talks about it. Best known for taking over the role of Fred Flintstone, and he sounded. He had a very similar, deep, rich sound, and it was a character actor, fantastic.
Yeah.
And they would I didn't even need to go to work. they would just edit takes I had done and put them in other commercials.
Oh,
It
that's
was a
wild.
very lucrative commercial. I've never had anything like that again. You know, you get one job like that and you think, this is it. I'm on my way.
I've
Everything's
got
going
it.
to be
I've reached the
like
top.
this. And then nothing ever happens the same way twice. So,
Yeah.
you know, it's just every job is a job, and that's what you're grateful for, and you just keep moving onward, you know. But yeah, that was that got me into voiceover. That was the
That's
thing.
fantastic. Well, and for Herschel, he voiced Charlie Tuna, who, for some of those who remember back when they actually used the icon of Charlie's character, the tuna fish character, in the commercials. They don't use him as much now, but the thing Sara voiced was Goldie, his girlfriend, the goldfish, I believe.
Yeah, there was a goldfish in a sexy red dress, and he's making me dinner. You know, the commercials were kind of dirty. You know, not dirty, but a little double entendre-ish, because he's like fresh spring water, and it's only the finest. And then a sign drops down, and it's like, sorry, Charlie. He's trying to get to be good enough for Starkist. You know,
Yeah.
Sorry, Charlie. Only the best tasting tuna gets to be Starkist. And then I'd say something like, oh, Charlie, you're all washed up, and walk out, wiggling my tail.
That's
So,
so
they
funny.
were kind of racy. And I just loved it. I just thought they were the cutest things ever, and they could have done them forever as far as I was concerned. But,
Oh, yeah.
times change. They do have a sort of a new version of Starkist tuna commercials on the air, cartoony ones, but it's different.
Okay.
It's a different thrust.
Yeah, they just aren't as good as they used to be. Back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the cartoons or the commercials that came out just had a flair in them that they just don't have today in advertising agencies. It's sad to see, but it is that way, unfortunately.
Well, I think the tastes have changed in that people's attention spans are shorter, and
Yeah.
you have to just get them somehow.
Yeah, has to be
and
quick and fast and boom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is just a different time, but who knows? It could come back. Everything changes. You just can't get cocky about pretty much anything, as far as I can tell.
Absolutely, Sara. Well, I have two final questions for you, and we will wrap this interview up. The first one is, what kind of advice would you give to someone who maybe is infatuated with Mary Jane's character and Spider-Man itself, or just acting itself and voice acting? What kind of advice would you give to somebody who might be pursuing this crazy career path of acting and voice acting?
Well, I am always very encouraging of anyone who wants to do this. There's a lot of negative stuff out there, and people can tell you how hard it is and this and that, but I really believe that if you love it, and if you study and take some acting lessons and take voiceover lessons, and if it's meant to be for you, the path should just fall into place. If you are constantly enjoying what you're doing and growing and learning, the jobs will come. If you're expecting too much right away without putting in the time, then you'll probably get discouraged. But I really believe that if you love what you're doing and you keep doing it, eventually you will get to perform that way. If it's cartoons, if it's acting, if it's dancing, you just have to keep following your bliss, not to sound too woo-woo about things. But I think people do things because they think that they're going to get rich or because they want to be famous. Those aren't the right reasons. The reasons are you love doing it and you want to get better at it and you want to be almost of service, to sound a little biblical. It's a service to have the skill to be able to fill these roles for the people who want to put out this entertainment. So first thing I'd say if you want to do voiceover is take an improv class, take an acting class, and get in a voiceover workshop. And that would be my advice.
Excellent, Sara. Thank you so very much for diving into that for us. I always love asking that particular question of my special guests because, everyone's going to have a different spin on it, especially like when I had John Simper on. He's a writer, so his perspective was not from an acting perspective, but from a writing one. And so I love, especially when I have people from the same fields that give the advice, I love to hear their different opinions because I learned so much from them myself, let alone my guests that listen to the show. So it's amazing to hear that from you today. So I thank you so very much.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's just my opinion, but I feel that that's the way to go. I'll just do a little plug for this documentary film I made called Troopers, and it the idea of the documentary was my partner, who I made it with, Dale Lawrence. We interviewed actors over 80 and 90, and wanted to find out how they hung in there and why they chose this profession.
Yeah.
And it sort of ended up being a love letter, a Valentine to these older actors.
Yeah.
And everybody we talked to, we had a list of questions that we wanted to hear what they had to say. And it was great hearing that kind of advice, from them, which has stuck with us as
Yeah.
the women who made the film, much younger than these people. But I see in time how wise they were, even though a lot of the cast now, including my dad, have passed on.
Yeah.
The information is so good for people starting out in the business. It's called Troopers, Troupers,
Okay.
and you can see it for free at snagfilms.com. And if you're interested in listening to some advice from some sage performers, I'd say check it out.
Fantastic. I'll definitely be checking that out myself, Sara, because I love to soak up any information I can from those who are in the business, because they, the advice that they give helps me be a better host of my show.
Oh.
And it helps me be more knowledgeable in life of the actors who've gone before us, who've had such amazing careers.
Trenton, you will love it. You will one of my actresses, I just called her yesterday to wish her happy birthday, was Pat Carroll, who was
wow.
Ursula in The Little Mermaid.
Wow.
And and she's just turned 90, I believe. It was her 90th birthday
Goodness
yesterday.
gracious.
And we interviewed her about 10 years ago, and she's so fantastic and just such a wonderful been an actress really since she was a little girl. It's really been her whole life, and you can't help but learn from these people because it's so in their blood. So anyway, you'll enjoy the movie. I know you will. You'll check it out.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that sounds fantastic. Especially, it sounds like it's chock full of information that's going to be wonderful.
And entertaining and funny, because you know what?
Awesome.
When you talk to entertainers, they're usually entertaining.
Hopefully, we hope, right?
That is what sort of sets them apart. They make life a little more fun for the rest of us, and that's why we like to watch them, right?
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Well, Sara, the last question I have for you today is, what is the legacy that you want to leave behind?
Oh, that's a wonderful thing. Well, I would like to be remembered as someone who had gifts that she really liked to share with people, and was very kind and generous, and hopefully inspiring to people wanting to get into our business in whatever way, shape, or form they want to. That's a good question, Trenton. I really hadn't thought about it, and I should, because I'm getting up there.
Well, I ask it of all of my actors, Sara, even ones that are a lot younger, and sometimes they're like, what? But I like to ask that question because, it's just, I think it's important. And I do get a lot of reactions that are like, wow, that's, it kind of makes people think. And if they haven't already thought of what they want, then it kind of gives them a way to shoot for maybe what they do want their legacy to be down the road. So.
Absolutely. No, that's a great question. I think about the people that have imprinted me in my life, and I don't know what exactly they would have liked to have left as their legacy.
Yeah.
But I feel like both of my parents really felt that life was supposed to be fun and to laugh as much as possible, and that's what they left me with. So I can't say it's a bad thing for me to want to leave that legacy too.
Absolutely.
To make people happy and to make people, get out of their whatever that funk might be. Yeah, and to find some laughter in this life and joy, and to spread that around, I think is a pretty good legacy to leave.
Absolutely. Well, laughter is the best medicine. Absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Absolutely.
No doubt about it.
Well, Sara, it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you on the show today. Would you please give us a closeout today as Mary Jane?
Oh, all right. Well, face it, Trenton Larkin, you just hit the jackpot. This is Sara Ballantine as Mary Jane, signing off from Who Did That Voice. Thanks so much for listening, guys. Well, face it, Tiger, you just hit the jackpot.
Well, everyone, I sure hope you enjoyed today's episode with Sara Ballantine, the voice of Mary Jane Watson. And if you did, please find me on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram by searching Who Did That Voice. I would love to hear from you. You know, a question you might ask yourself is, where can I listen to Who Did That Voice? That's an excellent question. You can hear us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, TuneIn Radio, YouTube, and our website at www.whodidthatvoice.co. Click the Episodes tab and listen away. Well, everyone, that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us this Friday for our next special guest, Nick Jameson, the voice of Michael Morbius from the 1994 Spider-Man the Animated Series. You won't want to miss this episode. Hey, do you ask yourself who did that voice? Well, if you do, go to our website, www.whodidthatvoice.co, and click on the Episodes tab. Choose an actor, pick their name, and see pictures from the different characters they've voiced in their career.
Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you next time for more discoveries on Who Did That Voice.